Welcome back. All right, so we've got one game tonight. I am not weighing in on the game tonight. It's a game 7. It's going to be awesome. It starts at 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern, and it's the only game of the night. That's it. So everybody should be tuned in to watch Vegas and Minnesota in what should be an amazing game. The Wild have won 2 out of 3 in Vegas in this series. They lost 2 out of 3 at home. If they'd won 2 out of 3 at home, this series would be over. And Minnesota really clearly has decided to continue a tradition for Vegas, where Vegas has a hard time closing out series. They've had a hard time closing out series since they went to the Stanley Cup Final in 2018. 2019 against San Jose, they lost a 3-1 series lead. Of course, last year they had a 3-1 series lead against Vancouver. They eventually won that in 7, but Demko, right? And then, of course, they lost in the next round against Dallas. This year, 3-1 series lead against Minnesota. Looks like they've got it all figured out, and then they don't. So tonight is a huge night for the Vegas Golden Knights. If you lose this game as Vegas, I don't know how you go far. I don't know how they fix it because they've already got really good players at every position. I'm not sure how you'd fix it, but it's not exactly an organization that has shown that it has patience when it comes to building a Stanley Cup champion, as the acquisition of Pietrangelo in the last offseason showed. So for Minnesota, there's no pressure. There's none. And for Vegas, there's a lot of pressure. So we'll see how that turns out and how Vegas uses that pressure to their advantage, right? Reeves and McNabb are still on the protocol list, the COVID protocol list. They go on it. Krebs was on it as well. Krebs, of course, not, playoff player at this stage of his career, but without Reeves, without McNabb, that does make a difference. You look at the hit totals from the last game, they had 18 hits? Yeah, Reeves can get 18 in his sleep. So it does change Vegas's game. And when you don't have him on the lineup, and that changes that fourth line, it can change the whole personality of the game. So, I know for some of the advanced stats people, Reeves may be a disliked figure for some of the numbers that you see. But I really think that his physicality, his presence in the lineup, his ability to just get in the heads of the opposition, which he's done in the past, they don't have a chart for that. Tick the team off. Look at the tick the team off chart. He's off the scale. So yeah, that doesn't exist. But it does make a big difference. So when Cody Glass was in the last game, I was like, I don't know that Glass is going to be the guy for this series. So, yeah, we'll see who's in the lineup and who's not for Vegas when we get to game time. And Soucy will not play for Minnesota. He's missed the last, I think this is the 3rd game now in a row that he's missed. So that's a big loss for Minnesota on the blue line, right? And, of course, the winner doesn't get a lot of time off. The winner plays on Sunday in Colorado against the Avalanche. So you play tonight, it could go to double, triple, quadruple overtime. I'm sure if you're a Colorado fan, you'll be watching this hoping for double, triple, quadruple overtime. Or just, check it on your phone like, oh, cool, they're still going. Well, I'm going to bed. They're not. Haha. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes tonight and which team survives in order to go and play Colorado, who swept St. Louis and have been off for a while. So, and the interesting thing is I remember I was doing up a video on that before, the idea that is it an advantage to play against a team that played 7 games in the previous series? And it really wasn't. We always get into this like, oh, this team's going to be tired, and so the next round they're going to get straight. And it really doesn't end up being as big an advantage as you might think. It really doesn't. So we'll see. In fact, if anything, I found that teams that went through those 7-game series, being battle-hardened seemed to help them, that they then were able to win following subsequent rounds. But again, there'll be a video on that at some point. I know I got through the 80s and early 90s on that, and I was like, man, this is just... It's one of those things that I got halfway through, and I went, but I'll probably do something on that with the team playoff history videos that I'm going to do this summer. So there you go. Travis Dermott will play tomorrow for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nobody who watched that game last night is surprised. Nobody. Rasmus Sandin with 2 juicy turnovers that he was a part of, and directly led to goals. It's one thing to be a part of turnovers, but when those turnovers lead to goals, that's a problem. Now, whether or not they also push Galchenyuk down to a less prominent role because of that turnover in overtime, we'll see. But Sheldon Keefe's got some work to do, and he said that it wasn't Jack Campbell's best night either. So there's There are some reasons to be concerned if you're a Toronto fan. I will say this: I don't see them blowing a 3-1 series lead on Montreal. I don't see it happening. But tomorrow night there'll be 2,500 fans in attendance in Montreal, and we'll see what kind of difference that makes. Financially, 2,500 fans won't turn that game into like a big moneymaker, but just the optics, it'll help, and it should help Montreal as well. We'll see what happens there. Evans may very well play tomorrow for Montreal. Lehkonen is considered doubtful to play tomorrow for the Montreal Canadiens. So it's not going to be everybody in the lineup that you might have thought, but they won the game last night. So maybe you keep that lineup intact. If I'm Dominic Ducharme, I consider keeping that lineup intact, even if I get guys back. So we'll see what happens. Wallstrom for the Islanders is listed as doubtful for Game 1 that's taking place tomorrow. So probably not in the lineup for tomorrow's game. And for Boston, a lot of pressure on Boston at this point. It's interesting because against Washington, I don't think they had that level of pressure. I think the pressure was mostly on Washington. This series, yeah, they're the home team. The pressure's going to be on them. They'll be without Kevin Miller. He's not skating yet, so he's working on the bike. But if he's not skating, that's very telling about how far out he may very well be. Lauzon may return for Game 1. So Lauzon, who is missed on the blue line by Boston, if he can come back, that'd be great. The blue line is one area that I do think that the Islanders are ahead of the Bruins in. The Bruins do not have a shutdown pair in the same universe as what Pulock and Pelech are able to do for the Islanders. It is really, truly impressive. And so, because I've seen a lot of comments like, the Islanders, they just got lucky. They really didn't. So, but fine, it's not the playoffs unless you have fans trying to diminish what other teams have been able to do in the playoffs. I'm not sure why, but they do. It just makes the team you're cheering for, that you're arguing, that makes them look worse because they lost against, but that's fine. Ryan Ellis, after last night's loss, feels that the team has kind of lost its way. They haven't got out of the first round since 2018. But he does add that he's optimistic about the team's future. Nashville's one of those teams that, remember, they got off to that really rough start, and there was all this discussion about whether or not they might tear things down and go through some kind of a retool or rebuild. I would think with this result in the first round, you can make the argument for both. You can make the argument that they took Carolina to 6 games and they had 2 double overtimes and 2 overtimes, and this was a close series. But you can also argue, right, and they weren't able to win it, so they're still not getting closer to the cup, so we can go ahead and blow it up now, right? So you can make either argument. My guess is that it'll be small changes in between this season and next season for Nashville. The one big change, of course, is it does feel like Pekka Rinne's career is coming to an end now, doesn't it? So that would be a huge change if Pekka Rinne's not back for Nashville next year, and that would mean having to go out and get another goaltender to share the net with Saros, like a Mrazek Reimer type, right? Pittsburgh. With Pittsburgh being eliminated from the playoffs again and having lost 13 of 16 playoff games now, and not having won a round in the last 3 years themselves, including last year's losing in the bubble against the Montreal Canadiens, Letang, Crosby, Malkin. Letang says all 3 of them want to retire as Penguins. They have no intention of going anywhere else. They want to retire as members of the Penguins. So we'll see what happens in Pittsburgh. It could be a fascinating offseason for Pittsburgh, but if those guys want to return, and if the plan is to try to keep this team in contention, it's going to be quite the offseason there. Hextall's got some work because you have to offer something to get something, and in their case, it's some of the core guys that teams would be calling about. So we'll see what happens in Pittsburgh. But after what was an excellent second half of the season, and they were just, flying into the playoffs, that crash was pretty dramatic and pretty fast there. So, we'll see what happens with the Penguins. Bob Murray came out today and stated that he will be returning as general manager for the Ducks. That's the Ducks gear. And that Dallas Eakins will be returning as coach. Also Ducks gear, because I got this from Van City Sports. It's the CCM version. So the other version I had, it got torn up by this little cat up here. It's pretty badly torn up. And and it has that choking neckline. So this one doesn't. So I was like, I need one without the choking neckline, and that logo that's not really a logo at all. So yeah, your overall structure of things in Anaheim, it doesn't sound like it's going to change. So I know there's people who would like to see a change, especially at GM. It's not happening in Anaheim this year. So yeah, we'll see what they do over the off season, and if they get closer to the playoffs, or if Bob Murray just says, I enjoy this whole stockpiling prospects thing, and there's a pretty good draft pick in next year's draft. So it'd be a shame if we finish last, but Shane Wright. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Anaheim this coming off season. So the NHL themselves released this on Twitter today, and it's interesting. The record for overtimes in a playoff year is 28. We are currently at 15. We have 15. Now, the trick is you always have a majority of your overtimes in the first round for clear reason. You've got 8 series, and you don't have anywhere near that many series the rest of the way through. And you usually have your close rivals as well in that first round, and maybe into the second as well. So for us to get to that 28 overtime record, I would think we'll have to get... I mean, we still have some first round left, right, with Toronto, Montreal, and, of course, Game 7 tonight between Minnesota and Vegas. I wouldn't be surprised if that goes to overtime either. But I would think we'd have to reach probably 23 or 24 by the end of the next round in order to really realistically have a chance of breaking it. Because when we get into the semis and the finals, we've got teams that don't really know each other, haven't played each other all year. Those games could be lopsided either way. And we may not have that same tight checking, at least to start the series. Maybe eventually we get there, but we'll see. We'll see if we can break that 28 overtime record. I know there's been a lot of overtimes. We had 3 overtimes to start the playoffs. I was starting to think every single game was going to go to overtime. And then it's calmed down. So we'll see if we get a lot of overtimes at the start of round 2 or not. But yeah, so that's an interesting little record. We'll see if that gets broken. The PWHPA, so women's hockey, playing out of Calgary today. Calgary versus Montreal. It's on at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern on Sportsnet. And I mention it because it starts 2.5 hours before the game starts in Vegas. So if you wanted to watch some women's hockey, PWHPA is good hockey. And it is not the same group as you see in the NWHL, but we'll see whether or not those two can come together over the next few months here. Because I really think that for women's hockey to flourish, we need one strong league, and PWHPA has a lot of good women in it, good hockey players, and you want to have your best league, all your best players together. So hopefully they figure this all out. And hopefully, as well, these women are able to generate the interest they're looking to for their product. This is all about trying to get that interest up and get more eyeballs on the product. So it is good hockey. I don't mind watching it myself. I get burnt out on all the playoff stuff, and so yeah. There you go. Sportsnet's going to be carrying it. I will agree with this. I do find it odd that so you have the NHL tab on Sportsnet, and you look at TSN and Sportsnet, those are the two big ones in Canada. And on the NHL tab, which is National Hockey League, they will include all the women's hockey stuff on Sportsnet. They don't on TSN. And I'm okay with them not including it on TSN because it's not the same league. So if the NHL had an official agreement with the NWHL or the PWHPA, cool. All right. So you could qualify as like an offshoot, like the WNBA, right? With the NBA, but they don't have that. So it just comes off as being kind of odd. I understand what they're doing. I'm fine with it, but it just comes off as kind of odd. All right. There you go. You're all set for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.